Well, good morning. Here we are again on Veterans Sunday to honor those brave men and women who made the choice to keep our country free. And I was thinking about the turmoil that we are in right now with our country, and not just the voting, but even just the times and how things have changed over the years. Anything goes now. Everyone wants to be your friend. We don't want to make anybody upset about anything. We really need to take a hard look at that. And I feel that these men and women who have made that choice to keep our country free so that we can come in here this morning and worship together as a body of believers without the fear of someone coming in, taking us away, hurting us. So I would like to have all the veterans please stand so we can show you our appreciation for all the things you have done for us over the years. Please stand. Thank you. Something was started in 1946 in Chicago in a veterans hospital. It was a writing project. And it was started when soldiers came home from World War II and they didn't know PTSD back then and all those things, and they needed an outlet. And so these nurses came up with the idea of having the men write down their stories, write down their feelings, write down their fears, and as a way for them to express themselves and not be judged. And so they wrote them down, they encouraged them. When they left the hospital, they encouraged them to write more letters, write back to these nurses. And they found that it helped the men to really kind of have that outlet that maybe they couldn't express by words to somebody else. And they found that by doing that, the people and the soldiers that were bedridden, they would read some of the letters to them, and they could connect with that feeling of maybe hopelessness, maybe something they did, maybe something they saw that they can't get out of their mind. And so they did that for a few years, and then in 1952, two women, Margaret Keach and Gladys Hellsberg, decided that they would take these letters, these poems, these stories, and put them in a magazine. And today, this magazine is called Veterans Voices. And in here, there is all kinds of great poems, letters, thoughts, prayers for other veterans, that they decided that would be a great outlet nationwide that anyone could contribute to. And they found that by writing, maybe it would help heal those wounds, those unseen wounds. Something, like I said, PTSD, the moral things that they fight with daily. Do you realize that in every day, 22 veterans in this country commit suicide? Every single day, 22 across the nation. So they're hoping that maybe by writing their feelings down, writing poems, that they can help manage those feelings and suppress those feelings. So I'd like to read you a poem from this book. This is the latest one, I believe it's from the summer of this year, and it's called Beyond the Midnight Sky. They say there's a heaven, this is what I am told, a mighty creation, so mighty and bold, a place where the heart will never grow old, seasons will never change, but remain the same, lost in his praise and in his holy name. No more guilt, no more hurt, and no more shame. Silence will be golden and days and nights long. No more nights, no more rights, and no more wrongs. Singing all day, just singing his songs. A beautiful garden as far as the eye can see. Peace, wisdom, knowledge in the heavens of plenty. Soft-spoken words will be the key. A world of its own, no more death, no more sins, no more thunder, only graceful winds. Days and nights to no ends, beyond the midnight skies. And that was written by Charles Carey, who was a Vietnam vet. So my prayer for you today is, if you can pray for these men and women who are battling these inner demons that they have, that God will grant them peace, peace of heart, peace of mind. I belong to the auxiliary here in town, and this is one of the many things that we like to contribute to, is to the Voices, Veterans Voices. If you ever see it out, or if you'd like to read some of the stories, I have this copy here. But they also found in the hospitals, by reading some of these stories to the other veterans that are bedridden, they can make that connection. A connection that I could never understand unless you were in that situation. So please pray for our veterans. Please pray for their families, for their struggles, all the way from World War II veterans all the way to the present day. Please pray for those men and women who are fighting today, who are away from their families, and their families who are uncertain if they will come home or not. Please keep them in your prayer, in your daily prayer. And I'd like to introduce someone who is going to share his story with us today and what he went through. And his family is here with us today too. It's nice to have them here. And I'd like to introduce Bill Kleinedler.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here today, I tell you. Thank you for having me. This is my story. I only have one. I noticed there's a lot of veterans in room today, and each of you have a story as well. Like I say, this is my story. This is what happened to me during my time in Iraq in 2006. Before I go there, I want to just give you kind of a brief where I come from type of scenario. I've always been an artist ever since I was a little boy. I grew up in Michigan and the farmlands. This is actually a barn that I grew up within 3 miles of. The barn doesn't exist anymore, but I had time to capture it and I had time to draw it before it collapsed. Artwork has always been a big thing in my life. It's something I've always loved to do. It's an inspiration that I've always followed. A lot of people say, oh yeah, you have this gift, a gift from God. And I say, well, yeah, part of it is. Part of it is that gift from God, but if I didn't practice it, if I didn't do it, I wouldn't be any good at it. So I think it's, maybe 10% a gift, 90% work. And I think that's true about everything in life. In order to be good at something, I think you really have to practice it and continue it. So I did. All through my life, I've always practiced my art. I'm self-taught and just a little bit here, a little bit there, and I grew up with it. Yeah. Oh, back up one. How did that happen? We're out of order. There it is. November Prime is a piece that I drew in 2005. I completed it in November and into the first part of December. And I just felt inspired to do a piece that reflected Thanksgiving and something about that, that November feeling when the leaves change colors and Thanksgiving is upon us. It's just an inspirational piece, just something I wanted to do on my own. I completed the piece, and about, 2 or 3 weeks later, 3 days before Christmas, I received my orders for Operation Iraqi Freedom. So, Merry Christmas to me. I'm going to war. I closed up my studio, I closed up my shop, I took care of everything I needed, and I had to report down to Fort Jackson, South Carolina on January 31st, which I did. Prior to that, I've had a number of years, probably about 12 years, 7 active duty, 3 of reserve time, and a couple of years of IRR, which is inactive reserves, when I received my orders in 2005. So I was reactivated, and off I went. I was very proud of what I did. I wasn't married at the time. I didn't have children. I didn't have any really home obligations. Like I say, I closed my shop down and off I went. I knew what I was doing. I was always a logistics, a supply sergeant, and that's exactly what I was going to be doing. So I knew the job and I was comfortable. And I went. Little did I know when I got to Fort Jackson, they said, all right, from now on, you're going to be civil affairs. I have no idea what that is. So off to Fort Dix, they pushed us and we took a crash course in civil affairs. Civil affairs is something that we went around Iraq. We had a team and we went around Iraq to different villages and different towns, and we oversaw projects, infrastructure, building, roads, sanitary sewers, landfills. The areas that we saw, that we drove through and that we worked in were very devastated, very third world. We traveled, we walked and we drove through raw sewage, trash, because there's no landfills, so trash was everywhere. Wild dogs and cows just rummaging through the trash everywhere you went. Flies everywhere. It was pretty disgusting, when you compare it to what we have here and how we live here. So we did our job. We tried to bring the Iraqi people and show them how to rebuild their country, build roads, build schools, build everything they needed, bring in fresh drinking water, clean up all the raw sewage, clean up all the trash. We tried, overseeing these types of projects. And it went well. It went very well. And I was in country for 7 months doing this type of thing. And it was difficult. We would bring in a water pipeline, or the Iraqi people would, and the insurgents would blow it up the next day. So we'd have to rebuild, and it was just an ongoing struggle. The Iraqi people were very afraid to work, afraid that they would get shot. There was a lot of snipers. You put a guy on a bulldozer and start to build a road, first thing he's going to do, the insurgents are going to do, is take him out. So they were very afraid of working. And we were there to pull security and to see that these programs would be complete. In October 16th of 2006, I woke up, and our mission that day was to bring medical attention and needs to the people of Tarmiya. I was stationed on Camp Taji, about 40 clicks or 40 kilometers north of Baghdad, and Tarmiya was another 40 clicks north of that. I woke up that morning, and I had a very ill feeling in my gut. It's probably the worst feeling I've ever had in my life. Very nauseous, and I knew, I could feel, it was so thick, I could feel that there was something wrong, and we should not be on this mission this day. And I didn't report it to my captain or my CO. I just figured, well, this is just me. I'm just having a feeling I need to get over it, and I need to put my boots on, I need to get to work. But then when we got to our team room, our security team did not show up. They did not arrive. Our weapon systems were giving us problems. Our communication systems were giving us problems. And I thought, this is definitely a sign. There is something wrong with today. We should not be doing this. And right around noon, my CO said, all right, we're going to scratch the mission. We're not doing this today. There's too many issues, too many problems. And I was so relieved. I said, wow, thank you. So I went back to my bunk area, and we got up the next day, October 17th, and did it again. And my feeling wasn't so bad. It was still a little off, but it wasn't as bad as the 16th, the morning of the 16th. So we got up, and our communications came up just fine. Our weapons systems came up just fine. Our security team was on time. Everything went well. And I thought, all right, we're good now. So we went, and we went up to Tarmiya, and we cordoned off an area. It's a clinic, and pulled security on the perimeter, and we saw about 200 Iraqi women and children, and they all came in. And we had doctors and nurses with us on our convoy, and we provided medical attention to the people that day. And it went well. A little bit of sniper fire. We took some shots. I can tell you what a bullet sounds like when it whizzes past your head. It's kind of a strange sound. If you can imagine air being torn, just the sound of air being ripped. It's a very unique sound. Everything went well. So we loaded our trucks, we closed down the clinic, and we had to leave town by the same road that we came in on, because there was only one road in, one road out. During the time that we were issuing medical attention, the insurgents had time to plant an IED in the road. So they knew we were going back out, and sure enough, we did. I was driving a Humvee. It was up-armored, and I was about the third vehicle in line as we convoyed out of town. Got about a half a mile out of town, and sure enough, I saw this freshly tamped piece of asphalt in the road. And the roads, you got to imagine, are very destroyed. There was crater holes from previous IEDs, and there's debris and cars and junk and everything everywhere. So you have to maneuver around obstacles. There's just, it's a mess. And I noticed the two crater holes, and our trucks had to go between them, between the holes. And I noticed right there in the center, there was that freshly tamped asphalt. And traveling at about 30, 35 miles an hour, I saw it just as it went under my bumper. And I saw it, and I knew, I just knew it. I said, that's an IED in my head. But it took a tenth of a second for me to think it, and then it went boom! And it went off with such force and such violence. It was probably the loudest bang that I've ever heard in my life. I don't know. I try to tell people, if you can imagine driving down the road in your car, in your car, and having as many propane tanks in your back seat as possible, and they all just explode at once. It's kind of, I don't even know if that gives you the right feeling. The detonation was so bad that it lifted our truck off the ground because it punched a hole in the bottom of our truck as I drove over it. Instantly, the vacuum of that detonation ignited the gasoline we had in our fuel cell, which inside the cabin was now engulfed in flames. It was a roaring furnace. So thick, the flames coming over my head, and they would hit the windshield and they would roll back down on me. I could see this cyclone of fire in front of me, so thick I couldn't see through the windshield. I had no idea where I was going. I knew I was on the road. I just tried to keep the steering wheel straight. I knew the road in front of me was straight. In all the chaos, I tried hitting the brake pedal to stop the vehicle as we were still hobbling forward, just to stop the vehicle and get everybody out, is what I was thinking. In reality, the brakes were completely destroyed. There was no stopping it. The truck was completely destroyed. Inside the cabin, there was fire, there was smoke, there was chaos. Everything was burning and popping and tinging and sizzling, and everything was burning. I looked down and my clothes were on fire, and I'm burning. And I'm trying to hold my breath, and I'm trying to open my door, and my door was jammed shut. I couldn't get out. I'm thrusting it with my shoulder, and I could not get that thing open. I noticed to my right, the door was wide open. I had later learned that my captain, the CO, had been ejected from the vehicle during the blast. He was thrown out. That's why his door was open. And I thought to myself, well, if I have to, I'm going to climb through the vehicle and get out that door. But the radio components, all the equipment that we had, plus all the equipment on my body, to get through this little narrow hole and out that door would have been almost impossible. I probably would have got snagged on something. and never made it. I say all this because I remember every moment of it, but it only took seconds. Just seconds were ticking. I'm holding my breath. I thought to myself, don't breathe, don't inhale, because all the flames are going to go right down your lungs and you're going to die right there. That's going to be it. So either I'm going to die from holding my breath, lack of oxygen, or I'm going to die if I engulf flames and it's going to burn me from inside out. Amidst all this chaos, a white orb, about the size of a cantaloupe, was in front of my chest. And I didn't know what it was at first. My first initial thought was it's phosphorus. In some bombs, phosphorus will ignite, white phosphorus will ignite, and it is so intensively hot, it will melt steel. And I thought to myself, this phosphorus is going to land in my lap, and it's going to melt me in half, and that's how I'm going to die. And I thought to myself, I'm okay with that. It feels pretty peaceful. It feels pretty calm. If this is how I'm going to go, this is how I'm going to go. But that white orb just floated there. It did not land in my lap. It floated there. And I looked at it. It was very, very bright, just brilliant, brilliant white. And it was kind of swirling around. And I couldn't tell if it was made out of fire or smoke or what it was, but it was brilliant white. Not like looking at the sun where it burns your eyes. And the sun has a yellowish orange tinge to it. This was white, I mean pure white. And it didn't hurt to stare at it. And I did. I looked at it and I'm thinking, well, I don't know. And as I did that, amidst all this chaos, remember, the truck is still burning, I'm burning, everything, I'm trying to hit the door and get out. I heard this voice, and this voice came to me. It was very clear and very peaceful. And the voice said, you need to get out of the truck. And I thought to myself, well, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. You know, I'm hitting the door, it's like I'm trying to get out. And it repeated, it said, you need to get out of the truck. And I repeated that 3 or 4 times. And then it became more urgent. And it said, you don't have much time left. You need to get out of the truck. And I hit the door one more time, and it popped open. I don't know where that thing went. I haven't seen it since. It disappeared. I bailed out. I rolled on the ground because I knew I was burning. I rolled on the ground to put my fire out, and I noticed I was on the pavement. And I said, okay, now I'm going to get run over by a truck. So I just kept rolling and rolling and rolling until I felt my body go down into a ditch. And then at least I knew I was off the road, and I looked, and I wasn't burning anymore, and I'm in the ditch, and I'm like, okay, I'm safe now. So I pulled my 9mm out, and I loaded it, and I started policing the area for security. And I looked back over my shoulder, and I saw the truck. It was bent in half. Thick black smoke and flames were rolling out of the windows, just totally engulfed. Very, very thick black. And I saw the truck, and I saw a body get out of the truck. There were 5 people on board, 5 souls on board. And a body got out of the truck, completely engulfed in flames, just like in the movies, hands raised, screaming, burning, every inch just burning. And I'm yelling at the person, I'm saying, get down and roll, get down and roll. And the person took about 10 steps and fell over face first and died. And I thought to myself, okay, there's a fire extinguisher on board, so now I need to get up and get the fire extinguisher out of the truck. And as I started to move towards the truck, all the ammunition, and we had about 4,000 rounds of ammunition on board, was superheated by the flames, and it all decided to go off. So now it sounds like popcorn. And it just, we have bullets flying everywhere. So I kept my head down, and when that was done, picked my head up again, and it was quiet. I saw our team of U.S. Americans coming up the road towards me on foot. I could recognize them because they had the uniform on, so I didn't shoot them. And everything was clear. They came over and They dragged me to a bombed-out building, an old shelter, and they started to cut my clothes off and hit me with morphine and administer first aid and got me on a chopper. I'm a staff sergeant, so I'm used to giving orders, not taking them. And they were trying to load me onto the chopper, and they couldn't. The medics couldn't get that litter onto the chopper. So I yelled at them and said, "Put me on the ground." And they did. They put me on the ground. I stood up and I said, "Put the litter on the chopper." And they did, and they clicked it in. So I crawled on board and I laid down and gave the pilot a thumbs up, and off we went. Chopper lifted off the ground. I could see the ground pull away. My adrenaline kind of wore off, and the pain set in. And I was like, oh, this is worse than I thought. I didn't see myself in a mirror for the first time until I got to San Antonio, Texas, at the Brooke Army Medical Center about 3 days later. And my face was melted off. And I thought, wow, this is worse than I thought. My hands were also burned. My arms were burned. I had third-degree burns, and they had wrapped me up like a mummy. But in those first few months of why me, why did that happen? I was trying to help the Iraqi people. I was trying to give them their freedom and their liberty. Why? And then, of course, you get into the guiltiness of it. We had 5 people on the truck. 3 of them were killed. I'm one of 2 people to survive that detonation. And I thought, why me? Why did I get to live? I was driving that truck. I should have swerved. I should have seen it coming. I should have did something else. I should have hit the brakes. You could have, should have, could have, would have all day long. But what happened, happened. And you have to come to terms with it. And you have to say to yourself, well, what am I going to do with this? Am I going to be poor, pitiful me the rest of my life? Or am I going to get up and put my boots on and get back to work? And I chose the latter. There's a reason why I'm here, and there's a reason why each of you are here. Whether you realize it or not is up to you. You have to look inside yourself and say, who am I? Why am I here? What good do I have to give to this world? My only answer, well, not my only answer, but one of my strongest answers was, I'm supposed to be an artist. Okay, whatever that means, that's what I'm supposed to do. So that's what I'm going to do. And when I got to the Brooke Army Medical Center, and my hands were so burnt that I couldn't make a fist, I couldn't hold a pencil, I couldn't hold a fork to feed myself, until that tissue started to regrow and regenerate, and until I could hold that pencil again, which was 2 years later, I started to draw for the first time. And I drew a picture I call Inspiration. Oh, we got to catch up. There it is. It's the first picture I drew. I was able to hold that pen again, and I was so overwhelmed by the feeling of, I get to draw again. I have my fingers, I have my hands, I didn't lose them, and I get to draw again, that I titled the piece Inspiration. It was my inspiration to get back on the board and do some work. During the time that I was drawing this, two wonderful ladies looked over my shoulder and said, wow, that's really good. It's like, can you draw a butterfly? I'm thinking, a butterfly? Yeah, I've been drawing my whole life. Yeah, I can draw a butterfly. She said, well, we have something to show you. We hope you can help us out here. And they took me over to what is now known as the Warrior Family Support Center. It's a 12,000 square foot facility down in San Antonio on Fort Sam Houston. And they had this brand new construction. It was still under construction when I went. They put a hard hat on me and they said, look, we have this fireplace here and we want something with a butterfly on it. So within an hour I came and I drew a picture and how about this? And they said, yeah, that's perfect. And they took it to their board and it was voted unanimous that that was going to be their butterfly sculpture that hangs. So over the course of the next month, I designed it, and then a month later we had built it. I was all bandaged up, so I couldn't do the work myself. With the help of Faro Welding, just north of Dallas, they did all the construction, the welding, the cutting, and I oversaw the project. just a couple of quick, here's what we mounted the thing, actually welding it to the masonry. We had steel pegs inside the masonry that we welded the sculpture to. And that's basically what it looks like when it came out. 75 butterflies adorn the sculpture. It's about 19 feet tall, made of steel. I titled it Hope. The Warrior Family Support Center is a place for veterans to go, with all the wounded warriors and their families. They can go to get away from the public eye for a while. It's a beautiful facility. It was actually the model of what the USO is doing down in Bethesda after Walter Reed closed down and they merged onto Bethesda. The USO put up a 25,000 square feet building, basically the same thing. Place for the wounded warriors and their families to go to relax and get away from the public for a while. So I titled it Hope, just for that reason. There is hope. Even in your time of desperation and need and hardship, there's always hope. What do you do with that? It hurts at first and you go through a lot of stuff, but eventually, with the help of God, you get over it and you move on. Soon after that, the Fisher House in Boston saw my Hope sculpture and said, we want one. So we designed and built Integro. Integro is a Latin word. It means to begin anew, to start over. And that's exactly what we do as wounded warriors. You get wounded, one day I have legs and the next day I don't, but you change. You start over. Take a deep breath and say, okay, well, we're going to change. All of life is about to change, and here's what we're going to do now. So it's entitled Integro for that reason. And this one also has butterflies adorning it. It's an exterior outdoor sculpture about 12 feet high, made of steel and copper. And like I say, it resides now at the Fisher House in Boston on the West Roxbury VA campus. In 2013, I drew a piece called Inbound, A Warrior's Return. This piece is in dedication to all warriors coming home, any veteran coming home still. We still have POWs out there. We still have a lot of veterans out there. I didn't draw the eagle on the limb. He's still coming home. He's still inbound, thus the title Inbound. He's coming home. In this particular painting, I drew the background in fog. You can hear the stories of veterans, and every veteran has a story, and you can listen to them and you can understand what they must have went through, but unless you were there with them, you don't really know what it was like. So that's the reason for the fog. You get the gist of it, but it's not completely clear. In the midground, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's 3 dead trees that represent the 3 American lives that were lost while I was in combat. Those lives are Nathan Vaco, Carlos Dominguez, and Ronald Paulson. Ronald Paulson was my gunner on that truck that day that he lost his life. That part's always hard to get through. In 2014, I drew a picture I dedicate to the Blue Star Mothers and the Gold Star Mothers called Homeland. Homeland is a piece that I want to dedicate to all the families that stay home while we're off on mission and we're off doing our job. They stay home. They take care of the house. They pay the bills. They mow the grass and take care of the kids and, keep the windows clean. And they do all the work around the house while we're off having fun. So this is kind of a thank you piece to our Blue Star Mothers, our families, for that reason. And then in 2015 and it was May of 2016, May of this year, I installed my 3rd sculpture called Windsong. Windsong resides at the Brooke Army Hospital down in San Antonio. Steel frame, copper leaves. It was built here. You may know him, John Murphy. Is he even in the room? John, are you here today? Oh, there he is. There he is. John opened up his shop for me so that I could build this thing. And we built it in sections and I drove it down to San Antonio to install it. Beautiful piece, 19 feet long. All the leaves are copper. We had fun building this. Windsong is just a piece. The people in the hospital, they see it every day. It's supposed to be tranquil. I hope I achieved it, but I'm trying to get the feeling of the tranquil wind, just the wind blowing. And if you're ever in trouble, if you're ever just in a hard place and you don't know what to do, it's one of the best things I can do is just go out and listen to the wind. Get quiet. And you can hear the wind, and it's blowing through the leaves. The leaves are rustling, it's blowing through the leaves, and it's a beautiful sound. And your thoughts kind of, well, at least mine do, coincide with the wind. I can feel sometimes when I get angry, the wind will pick up and it'll get aggressive. And then if I calm myself, the wind will die down and it'll be very peaceful. It's nice to be attached in that sense. I'm very religious. God is above me. He's in charge. I'm not doing this on my will. I'm doing it on His. I'm trying to listen to what He wants me to do. So I try to follow that. And a good way to do it is to be at peace. When I was in that vehicle, that peaceful voice came to me. Said, you need to get out of the truck. And it was so peaceful and so calm and so reassuring. I find the answers are best found when you're at peace, when you're calm and you can get inside of yourself and think about it and calm down. Feelings always get in the way, all the sorrows, the hardships that we go through, they're always in the way, and that's part of human nature. I think that's all part of it. And that's okay. That's okay, as long as we keep moving forward. I'm going to depart with maybe one last thought. There was a guy in a wheelchair. He had lost both of his legs down in San Antonio during the 3 years that I was there in the hospital. And every day I'd walk past him and I would say, good morning. And he would just sit there and stare straight ahead. And every morning I would walk past him and say, good morning. Just keep walking. Well, one day he nodded. He gave me a head nod. I said, all right, that's something. That's something. And within months, he actually said good morning back. And before I left there, he was speaking fluently again. I mean, this poor guy, he lost both of his legs to an IED. I'm lucky. I'm very lucky. I got burned up. I'm not going to win any beauty contest. I got scars. I don't care. I have all my digits. The horrific things that I saw in the hospital, these guys, 90% of their bodies burned, or even worse. I know a guy who was in there for years in the hospital fighting and fighting and fighting, and then finally his body just gave up and said, I'm done, and he succumbed to his injuries. I'm very lucky. I'm lucky to be here. I'm honored to be here speaking to you today. What I choose to do with it, what I choose to do with my life. My artwork is great. It keeps me going. Since I came home, I got married. My wife's in the back with my 3 daughters. Who'd have thunk it? I'm just a kid who grew up in Michigan. I like to draw and I went to Warren, but my life changed so dramatically since I've been back. It's an honor to be here. And you got to do something with it. So I strive to, as I speak, try to get people inspired and look at their lives and say, hey, do something with it. Do something with it. We heard earlier today 22 suicidal cases nationwide every day. And I have spoke with a lot of veterans, and there's programs in Boston that deal with just that. And if I can inspire someone to just say, all right, just live one more day, we can get you to do something. And it's a matter of just helping each other. I can't do everything. I need help. I need all of you. So many people helped me coming home, in the hospital. The medics getting me off the battlefield and getting me home. The people in the hospital, all the support groups, the people at the Warrior Family Support Center, the people at the Fisher House, the people here at home, right here in North Brookfield, coming in. And I asked my wife, I was going to drag her back to Michigan with me. She said, no, I'm not leaving. You can go if you want. I'm staying here. So I live here now. We live up in New Braintree. Life is amazing. Life has a way of doing something. If you pay attention and if you're on board with it and if you get involved, it's an amazing thing. And it certainly helps other people. So today I want to thank you for having me here just to tell my story. And I appreciate it. So have a wonderful day. Thank you.